Tomorrow is the day of retribution. The day in which I will have my revenge against humanity. Against all of you. You will all be animals. You are animals, and I will slaughter you like animals. I hate all of you sexually active men. I hate you. I hate all of you. If I had it in my power, I would stop at nothing to reduce every single one of you to mountains of skulls and rivers of blood.
Welcome to Fairfax Files. Today we're going to cover the case of Elliot Rogers, the dark and disgusting delusion of the Incel supreme gentleman. This is the monstrous story of a horrifying incel, an involuntary celibate. What is that? It's a man, due to deep-rooted resentment, believes he is locked out of a fundamental part of love, life, intimacy, connection. He doesn't choose celibacy. He's forced into it by feelings of inadequacy and rejection. Instead of seeing these challenges as a chance for self-improvement, he starts to believe it's the world's fault. He's entitled to affection, and yet it's always out of reach. An incel is someone who feels disconnected from human intimacy, not just physically, but emotionally. They often internalize rejection, believing it's proof they're unworthy of love. And that belief, if unchecked, breeds bitterness, resentment, and eventually rage. But here's the tragedy. The supreme gentleman, Elliot Rogers, didn't just lose love. He lost his humanity in the process. His ego, unchecked and unchallenged, became his own prison. In this video, we're taking a raw look inside the mind of an incel, a man who wore entitlement like armor, but only ended up more isolated. We'll explore the dangerous path of unchecked bitterness and the lessons we can learn from the destructive behavior of the ego. We will do all this while we first discuss the horrendous acts that Elliot Rogers did to humanity. This is the tragic story of Elliot Rogers, a young man who was not born evil, but who lost his way in a world that he felt rejected in, that he felt rejected him. He spiraled into hate, vengeance, and delusion, and in the end, took 6 innocent lives before ending his own. This story explores the warning signs, the inner turmoil, and the missed opportunities for invention. It is a tale not just of massacre, but of a soul crying out for recognition, belonging, and healing. The early life of Elliot Rogers. Elliot Oliver Robertson Roger was born on July 24th, 1991, a Cancer sign in astrology, in London, England. His father, Peter Roger, was a British filmmaker who worked on The Hunger Games, and his mother, Lee Chin, was of Malaysian Chinese descent and once worked as a research assistant for a film company. The family moved to California when Elliot was a young boy, settling in the affluent areas of Los Angeles. From early childhood, Elliot struggled with social anxiety and feelings of isolation. He was small, shy, and introverted. Despite being surrounded by wealth and opportunity, he never felt like he fit in. He often compared himself to others and believed that he was somewhat lesser, less attractive, less masculine, and less worthy. The style, persona, and the mask. As Elliot grew older, he crafted an image of himself based on designer clothes, polished hair, luxury brands, and eventually a black BMW. His appearance was meticulous. He wanted to be seen as upper class, desirable, and superior. He believed that if he looked the part, love and attention would follow. But behind his crafted facade was a deeply insecure young man who struggled with feelings of invisibility, jealousy, and unworthiness. He never had a girlfriend. He had never kissed a girl. And he grew obsessed with this fact. That's when he created and birthed the channel on YouTube, his channel of delusion. Elliot turned to YouTube as his diary and stage. His videos, which are still remembered for their eerie tone and chilling narcissism, show a man trying to assert control over a world he felt dominated him. He spoke in a practiced and condescending voice, often referring to himself as a supreme gentleman. He resented men who had success with women and ridiculed women for not recognizing his worth. His online presence became a space where he reinforced his beliefs of superiority and victimhood, a dangerous combination. The rise of his hate started when his anger started to grow. Elliot started acting out in public. He described in his 137 manifesto how he once threw a hot coffee on a couple he saw being affectionate at a Starbucks. He admitted to spilling drinks on people at parties, pushing women into pools, and generally acting out his jealousy in petty and passive-aggressive ways. These weren't harmless acts. Elliot's hatred didn't stop at strangers. He wrote about wanting to kill his stepmother, Sumaya, describing her as disrespectful and a source of tension in the home. He also harbored violent fantasies about murdering his 6-year-old half-brother, Jazz, because he feared that Jazz would one day have more success with women than he ever had. He didn't see his family as loved ones. He saw them as competitors in a cruel game of validation. In the weeks leading up to the attack, Elliot's mother became deeply concerned after watching one of his YouTube videos. Alarmed by what she saw, she contacted the Santa Barbara County Sheriff's Department and requested a welfare check. Elliot did not live with his mom. The deputies arrived at Elliot's apartment. He was calm, polite, and articulate. They found no legal reason to search his apartment, where he had already begun stockpiling weapons and ammunition. The police, like many others, were fooled by the mask he wore. They left believing him to be sane. This was a pivotal moment, one in which intervention could have saved many lives. Elliot wrote a 130-page manifesto titled My Twisted World. It detailed his life, beliefs, and intentions. It is filled with narcissism, rage, misogyny, racism, and a deep desire for recognition. He blamed women for not loving him, men for being more desirable, and society for not giving him what he believed he deserved. He referred to sexually attractive white men as chads, a term from Incel culture meaning confident, attractive men who easily attract women. Although Elliot was half white himself, he expressed hatred towards full white men, while simultaneously desiring the white woman he believed they took from him. It was an internalized racism, a rejection of his own mixed heritage, and a desperate longing to belong to the social elite he felt excluded from. On May 23rd, 2014, Elliot Rodger began his attack. He started by stabbing his two roommates, Chen Yuan Hong and George Chen, and a third visitor, Wei-Han Wang, in his Isla Vista apartment. He then got into his BMW and drove to a sorority house, where he shot 3 more people, killing Veronica Weiss, Catherine Cooper, and Christopher Michaels Martinez. Over the next 10 minutes, he drove through the streets, shooting at pedestrians, hitting bicyclists with his car, and exchanging gunfire with police. He injured 14 people in total. Finally, he crashed his car and took his own life with a gunshot to the head. His father was not a target. In fact, Elliot often expressed admiration for him and believed his father had tried to help him, though he still blamed the divorce for some of his emotional instability. Elliot Rodger was a soul in pain, but he was also a mind consumed by ego. And a mind consumed by ego is like a house of mirrors. It reflects a distorted image back to itself and calls it truth. Let me break this down in a soul coach way, because as a soul coach, I can see this just isn't about judgment. It's about understanding the root of suffering. Elliot sought validation, not truth. He didn't want to understand himself. He wanted the world to applaud him. Like many trapped in ego, he craved admiration more than alignment. He twisted reality to protect the version of himself he created, the supreme gentleman. The ego whispers, if they don't admire you, you are nothing. But the soul says, even in your silence, you are everything. He couldn't handle rejection or accountability. To Elliot, rejection wasn't a redirection. It was a personal attack. Women not being attracted to him wasn't just disappointing. It enraged him. He didn't ask, how can I grow? He asked, how can I punish? The ego doesn't want healing. It wants superiority. And when it can't get it, it chooses destruction. He lived in fantasy, not awareness. Elliot created a mental movie where he was the irresistible superior male entitled to attention and intimacy. Reality contradicted his script, so he resented it. When your ego writes your story, the truth becomes the villain. He feared vulnerability and rejected help. Elliot wouldn't say, "I'm struggling." Instead, he said, "They're evil." Rather than open up, he armored up. Ego builds walls where the soul longs to build bridges. He blocked his own spiritual growth. Ego thrives off fame, intimacy, status, and control. But spiritual growth requires surrender, humility, and emotional intelligence, none of which his ego would allow. The ego screams for attention. The soul whispers for alignment. The fiction he called truth was delusion. Elliot didn't just suffer, he distorted. He called himself a supreme gentleman as a way to cope with rejection, not as a reflection of reality. Supreme meant superiority. Gentleman meant deserved admiration. But he didn't grow into that role. He demanded it. He didn't want to become a better man. He wanted the world to treat him as one without doing the inner work. Delusion is when the ego writes fiction and calls it truth. His soul's mirror was fogged with denial. Elliot denied every opportunity to look inward. He refused therapy. He refused reflection. He rejected the idea that he might need to evolve. Instead, he blamed women, society, and other men. Denial is the ego's defense against growth. It blocks the soul's mirror. He cried silently due to his deep loneliness. Elliot craved connection, but ego doesn't know how to love. It compares, it competes, it demands. He was surrounded by people, but deeply alone because he couldn't be his real self. Now, it's important to note at this moment, it's very common to not feel that you are your real self around everyone. But it's not common to want to kill those who you do not feel comfortable around. Loneliness doesn't always come from being alone. It comes from being unable to show your true self. And if you cannot show your true self in front of the people you're around, then perhaps you need to find newer people to be around. You see, the ego is a dangerous situation. It will keep you in the company of people who are no good for you while you try to prove yourself to them. It is best to pull yourself away. Retract from the energy that you know does not suit you and relax within yourself. Retreat and regroup. You will find the people that are meant to be in your energy and the people you can show your true self. The ego's armor does not have any light in the soul. He was not a supreme gentleman. That phrase that Elliot used, supreme gentleman, it's not just haunting, It's revealing. Elliot wore it like a crown, but it was not real gold. It wasn't copper. It was plastic. When someone insists they are a supreme gentleman, but can't offer kindness, compassion, or understanding, they're not operating from soul. They're operating from ego. Because a real gentleman doesn't need to say it. His energy speaks before his words ever do. As a soul coach, I teach people the law of cause and effect. And this is the karma that Elliot ignored. In life, we reap what we sow, not just physically, but spiritually. Elliot sowed bitterness and entitlement. He projected hate and isolation, and that's what returned to him. Karma isn't punishment. It's a mirror. The universe reflects what we give. He planted seeds of bitterness, yet he expected a harvest of affection. Elliot displayed a lot of red flags. And if you are a person that is around someone who you think may be an incel or just dangerous in general, here are some behavior markers that you can keep in mind. Write down and use them as a guide. Intense isolation, grandiosity, an obsession with intimacy and status, emotional instability, hatred toward entire groups, women and other men. Now, we need to break this down because there are people who are introverts and they enjoy isolation. They enjoy reclusive behavior, but they don't obsess with grandiosity and they don't obsess with intimacy and status. And there are people out there who have emotional instability. Some people are very sensitive to the way people treat them, to what they're going through in life. But it doesn't mean they conjure up an entire plan of hatred toward entire groups with men and women. Of course, you may, and your friend may, or a family member may, a co-worker, a boss, may not like a certain group of people. But it is the deep-seated hate and anger and resentment that becomes the red flag. When someone says they hate a group of people they've never truly known or never been around, that's not pain. That's protection. My advice to you as a soul coach is, if you see someone going down this path, don't ignore it. Don't excuse it. Encourage help before harm follows. Again, there is a huge difference. You will see the hatred because they will exhibit it all the time. They will not allow themselves to be able to light up and look happy and enjoy life in other ways. They are consumed with that hatred, with that anger, with that resentment. They don't take on healing. They don't want therapy. They don't want love to enter their soul. They want to be in the capsule of their negative ego. To the Elliots of the world, I say this: you're not broken. You're bleeding. But your pain doesn't have to become poison. You deserve healing, not hatred. Find mentors, not someone who agrees with your wounds, but someone who sees your potential and won't let you hide in your pain. A true mentor doesn't stroke your ego. They stretch your soul. Join communities that heal, not hate. You become the frequency of the people you surround yourself with. Elliot found the incel world. It gave him a place to put his pain, but not to process or transform it. A healthy community won't feed your rage. They'll help you rise. So if you are online, if you are in a group, in a community, and you find that they are agreeing with you and they are feeding into your rage and they are giving you reasons for you to be angry, you are not in a safe space for growth. You are in a place to remain stagnant. Reframe rejection as redirection. If you are being rejected, look at it as redirection. Rejection isn't a punishment. It's a protection. It's life guiding you to a deeper self-worth. Every no can be the universe saving you from a lesser version of yourself. My final thoughts. Elliot was a spirit in crisis. Elliot was not merely a killer. He was a person that was in pain, a soul broken by ego, entitlement, and sorrow. He wanted to be loved, but he didn't know how to love. He wanted to be seen, but refused to truly see others. He was a cautionary tale of what happens when pain festers, when the ego isn't humbled, and when society fails to recognize and treat mental illness. His story is not an excuse, but a reminder that hurt, if not healed, will hurt others. A reminder that masks, no matter how polished, can't hide spiritual wounds. And a reminder that love begins with learning to value the self, not through hate, comparison, or revenge, but through humility, connection, and compassion. Remember, love and light, not hurt and pain. If this story resonated with you, please consider subscribing to this channel. These stories are not meant to glorify or sensationalize, but to educate, reflect, and understand. As always, I'm Cerise, your soul coach, guiding you through the human spirit in all its light and shadow. Peace and understanding to all who suffer. When someone lives in delusion and denial, they lock their soul in a prison built by pride. They may wear confidence on their face, but instead, they're starving for a love they've rejected from the world and from themselves. That's the curse of an unchecked ego. It promises power, but delivers pain. Thank you so much for listening. This is the Fairfax Files. Please be careful out there and be good to yourself.